What's up? How's it
My
going?
favorite thing is it's the exact amount of time I need to share to all my socials.
That's awesome. I love it.
To the second.
That's that's fantastic. We we have. I'm in a different angle today because we had a small little mishap
He
before.
was attacked. He was attacked by gremlins. I'm still saying it. I saw it.
I know. My camera stand broke literally before we went on camera, guys. It was crazy. Like they seen it and it just went over, and they yelled out, "Are you okay, Joey?" Because it looked like I fell.
It was the perfect setup for a horror film where the camera falls and it's like at floor level, and you're like, oh man, something really scary is going to be showing up in the corner like a gremlin or.
Oh man,
Okay, scream for help.
it was hilarious. He says, Joey, this angle is throwing me off. My day is a mess now. Thank you for explaining why this angle is different. Sorry, guys. Anyway, how's it going, Jen? I didn't mean to hijack your show.
What?
You go ahead and start us off because that was hilarious.
Oh man, okay, so this is like a weird scout week for me, and I'm super excited because we've been actually like I think they've been putting off sending things until everything made it to the box. So we got everything this week. Everything.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's like totally scout release week for me.
So yeah, because you were saying, what was it, about a week or so ago? You were saying you didn't have much of anything, right?
So I mean, everyone was talking about how good Playthings was, and Beyond the Beyond, and there was another title. The Pentagram of Horror, and I was like, I don't have it yet. Sad me.
And you don't read the preview copies that they send the retailers and all that good stuff?
No, I'm such a weird person. If I have to, like if there's a total like I have to have something to review for the review show and there's no way to get a physical copy, then I will read it that way. But for one thing, I understand they're sending it to me so I have a better knowledge for FOC. But for me, I get confused in my brain about, did I read that book because it's already out? I'm worried that I'm going to like drop knowledge that's not supposed to be out there because I'll mix it up with, did I read it because it was out this week or did I read it for review, really early? So I tend to not read things early because I really value the fact that people know that if they tell me not to say stuff, I'm not gonna. So
I do the same thing for the show that I do with Ambrosia, because we like a lot of times we'll watch shows like today. Moon Knight dropped it. We're not gonna watch it today until after our broadcast, because we feel like if we see it, we're gonna like slip up and say some spoilers on air, and that is not a good thing.
So what you're telling me is that the safe conversation is about a particular slap that happened on a national broadcast, and you want to spend 30 minutes discussing the zeitgeist that has entered itself into. And I'm saying no, we will spoil everything before.
We're going to talk about that definitely on the show tonight, because I have some things to say, but I will not talk about that here on Jen's show.
Here.
I made a super controversial post about that. My super controversial post was, controversially, I am not going to post about that, having not seen the show, nor know either of the two people that were involved personally. So I'm just going to do a weird thing and not post about it.
I'm going to say something controversial yet brave. I don't really care. I don't care about it, not one way or the other. It's not my conversation to have. I didn't watch it. I'm gonna discuss it, right?
I will say this. I will say that I do not condone violence, and violence is never the answer. There are many, many different ways to handle situations.
Unless fighting is specifically the event you are attending. Like, are you at a boxing match? Then someone might have to throw a fist.
There you go. Yeah, specify.
Or
there you
are
go.
you in 5th grade? Then violence is the only answer.
I think with this and many other events that happen in the world, that people believe that they are experts in that event because they saw memes about it on Facebook.
Oh my gosh, people! I don't know if you want me to pop up some of these comments.
No, it's not be controversial.
All right, but yes, there's some things that I have to say about it, but I won't say it here. But because we're here to talk about comic books, Jen, what have you seen come through the shop this last week? Anything fun?
Okay, so I was really actually looking forward to some of the horror stuff that dropped for me. Like, I was super excited to finally, having interviewed twice the creator for Playthings and been teased about it, I really wanted to see if, because sometimes people say their stuff's scary or they're aiming for scary, and then there's people that actually write scary things. And I think in this case, it's the perfect thing. It's not told linearly. Nope, can't say that word. Not in time order. It jumps a little bit, and I like that. But I also really love that it does the thing that I think perfect horror does, which is the action stuff that happens. Like, if a creepy clown doll is going to move, it happens between the panels. So it allows you as a person to imagine something even scarier than possibly could happen, instead of, like, if you draw it, then it's out there for you. You can't use anything more scary. It's already laid out for you. But for me, everything's much more scary if I have to imagine how in the world did that clown doll get up on the shelf in the bathroom. Happen.
Yeah, I'm not much of a horror reader, like horror comics reader, but I tend to, like, when I write or like write for fun or something like that, it tends to be kind of like a horror kind of feel. So I don't know what that means. Maybe I'm crazy inside. I don't know.
I've been trying to dabble into writing horror. I tend to love writing action adventure stuff and things with, like, involving dreams or whatnot. And a short story that I wrote had a segment where we delve into nightmare. Hey Joseph, what's up? And we start delving into nightmare, and I'm just like, well, nightmares are fun because my favorite horror stuff is like Silent Hill, Jacob's Ladder, which obviously, it directly inspired that. But the stuff that kind of not subverts your expectations, but messes around with the audience's perspective on reality. Like, the second the horror starts to reach out to the audience, where it's just like, it's a phone call that you'll get and then you'll die in 7 days. But it's just the idea of that. And then now every single time you hear a phone call from an unknown number for a certain amount of time after that movie, you're just like, oh, here we are. I'm about to die. I have to say my goodbyes to everybody. I mean, the ice cream shop guy, and that's it. So it's just a matter of pain, loss, and it's really what I resonate with. But I also like action adventure.
There are some books out there that also, I don't know if I call them horror, but are more suspense, psychological thrillers. Like, I'm thinking about things like Gideon Falls, where there really is a part in the book for that, and some other books that I've read that are expertly crafted, where they somehow in the writing start to make you doubt your sanity. What's reality? That's perfect writing.
I love that.
Yeah. Any book that makes you think or question yourself a little bit, I think you did something right.
Like, am I stupid? And then you turn the page, and it just says in the center of the page, yes.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. How'd you know?
How did they know? I did fail math 3 times in a row. I'm sorry.
Awesome.
I can ask you, do you know how to balance a checkbook? No.
So, Jen, I have a question. Since this show's called I Mustache You a Question, and I know we've talked to you a little bit about it before, but I want to know. I mean, you've written you're into comic books. You're writing something, but when you write something, how long did it take you to kind of learn how to, because there's a learning curve when you don't know how to write comic books. How did you attack that learning curve?
I don't know that I still do know how to. Like, I don't have enough printed to know or have feedback from enough stuff that I've got printed that makes me believe that I've really got a good handle on it. Because I look back on my old work from the 90s and think, this is like a newbie writer just hopefully putting cool things out into the world, and it was clear that it was something that I could hand to people in my store and could tell them everything about the background. And so I didn't have to fill those things in my writing, because I was like fully immersive, right? I'm the creator standing in front of you, and I can tell you all the things. So yeah, I'm still so much learning. There's a level that you just have to achieve from writing and writing and writing and writing, and obviously from reading people that are doing it correctly. But yeah, it's totally different, right? I've heard from people that are script writers for movie and TV. It's totally a different thing altogether.
Michael, how do you feel? Does that learning curve go away, or do you feel like you're always learning?
Never. Every single time I write anything, the first few drafts are just like, so when did I learn Mandarin, and why am I choosing to write it now? And then it takes a solid few rereads. I have to read it out loud. Reading stuff out loud to myself, hands down, is the best way for me to understand just how dumb I actually am. And it was just like, I understand what I want on the page. And it doesn't matter if it's prose, it doesn't matter if it's a script for comics or screenwriting or anything. It's just a matter of, and this is my own perspective on stuff, once I see the page in front of me and I can hear the voices, all of the voices that live in my head, but come out on the page, it's almost as if I'm remembering the events as they occurred, as opposed to me trying to come up with the story on the fly. I'm just like, oh, I remember what happened. And once that starts clicking and I get into that flow, I know I'm doing something right. And of course, there might be typos. I don't know how to use a comma, apparently. And it's just like, that's okay. I was already told it wasn't loved. So I'm just going to move beyond that, remove the commas, and get the acceptance that I want for myself. But jokes aside, the learning curve never goes away. So any writer who starts off with a project, no, it's always going to suck. It's okay. Just keep writing. Just keep doing it. And then do it again. And then do it again. And then once you start getting to the point where it's just like, okay, I don't hate myself, then we can start getting some feedback. I would say you have to get there before you start asking for feedback. Yeah. Because you have to, at the very least, be proud of something that you put down on the page.
And David Burns in the house, and he says writers should always be growing. And I feel like that is absolutely correct, because and I think honestly we can use that in any industry, right? But specifically here, if you are learning these tips and tricks and talking to your peers and understanding the way that they do things, and also understanding that there's not one way how to make a comic book, right? There's some people who are the fly by their seat kind of people who just get in there. So there's some people who have to have the outlines exactly correct the way they need to, and all that stuff, right? Some people just kind of just throw it together and then maybe edit later and be like, okay, toss these things here and out. So, but you're absolutely correct. Growing should always be key. I feel. Yeah.
I mean, as a writer, I'm 8'5" now.
There you go. He says, ask Joel Rodriguez and Francesca Fantini. Fantini. I always mess that one up because of Marco Antonelli. I also make sure I'm always challenging letterers and artists. Yes. There's some really big that is one of the things that I feel that nobody talks about a lot right now is letterers. Because they obviously they make the words jump off the page, and sometimes like David said, you have to challenge them, but sometimes you get those gems where those letterers even challenge you, and I think that's really awesome when you find those people.
When they tell you, hey, this is 7 pages of a run-on sentence, and I'm just like, no, it's not. You're just gonna make it work. That's one panel.
Yeah. I think there's like 2 schools of thought, right? There's some books that the lettering needs to be noticed and it becomes like another character in the book. And then I always say, like, if you don't notice the lettering in a book, they're doing their job really well. Because That's the other school of thought. It's like it's seamless. Just in there, you didn't think to yourself, "Oh man, how they fit that in that panel." You just read it; it just flows.
Yeah, maybe this is something that I wanted to ask. Some folks who are in the writing biz. How do you feel about exposition in storytelling? Because I feel like it's split straight down the middle, especially in comic books, in film, in prose is its own thing, but for me, like my love of like manga, anime, exposition is used as a device. It culturally speaking, they use that because they are trying to let you know that this is more of a storybook. This is supposed to be an account of this event. And a lot of the American writers that I've met or that I've spoken to or I've read seem to the idea is like show, don't tell. And I'm just like, but there's something to a narrator. There's something to having the guiding force throughout a story that I think is actually growing now in a lot of stuff that I've read recently, where someone's taking the main character and having them be the narrator because their perspective works. Hate exposition, especially in movies. Show, don't tell. It's okay if the audience has to figure things out for themselves. Granted, yes, but that is, I would say, exposition depends on the story. Sometimes it's lazy, obviously. Like, just like, this is the story about Jem. Jem loves her life. Just like you could show that. But there are certain things. But if it's, let's say, the narrative device of just like, this is the account of a war. These are the events that happen to this and this place. Though I feel like that adds to the framing of that world.
We kind of have a perfect example of that right now, not for comic books necessarily, but in movies. If you watch the original Dune, lots of exposition. They have lots of narration and voiceover. And in the new one, they did away with all of that. And I like them both equally.
Yeah. I love them both equally. Michael, there can be a happy medium. Don't tell the whole story through exposition. Use it when it's needed and be creative with how you use it. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I can't say that it's an all or nothing approach. I've just noticed like the two extremes, but I'm glad to see that people now are being a little bit more, I don't want to say brave, but being a little bit more brazen with their stylistic choices in their storytelling. And narration used to be the big boogeyman for a lot of people. And I'm just like, it depends on how you use it, not necessarily the size.
I got another question here, and it has to do with story and art, and specifically, choosing an artist for the type of story that you're writing, because I feel like that right when I'm writing something, or I got something going on right now, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm looking around, and I'm like, if I were to ever put this out there in the world, what kind of artist would I actually look for, kind of thing. And that's kind of a fun thing, because I don't really ever intend this thing going out to the world. But I'm like, how fun would it be in looking for this kind of stuff? And I go and ask other creators, and it's the same thing. You have to find the artist and that fits the story, because you can't have some kind of like like a David Byrne kind of stuff for a different kind of story that he, what I mean, or a certain style of artwork that fits for horror, and you're going to be putting it in a grounded story. But I mean, people play with things and they make it work some certain ways. But I mean, how do you guys see that? Because I know I'm just probably talking out the other end.
No, you're not. No, you're not. It's a very valid point. Jen, please go first. I feel like I've been yammering on.
There's sometimes when people make artistic choices that at first when you start reading the book, you're like, I don't know, this is kind of taking me out of the book because it seems discordant with what the story is being told. But like this week, there's a book from, I think it's Source Point Press. It's either called The One or One Book. It's a love story for comic book store owners. It really goes and it tells kind of semi-autobiographically, even though I think this character is actually pretend. The story of one man's journey from being a kid, being raised by his grandparents and being exposed to comic books for the first time and falling in love with them, and his whole life's journey through owning a store and how he got there. And then finding out how his customer base actually was affected by him, even though he had no idea that he was actually making an impact. And I mean, it hit me in the guts big time, because it's like, you know, when you own a comic book store, you think to yourself, am I actually making an impact in anyone's life and being helpful to people? I'm just selling funny books. But yeah, it's the art style that was chosen was very cartoony, and for a while I thought that was going to be to the detriment of the story, but it ends up being just perfect because it is done in comic book form. It's a love story about loving comic books.
Yeah,
so, wow, such a good book.
Could you send me the link to that? I would love to read it.
Yeah, thank you. Wicked cool.
On my end, for instance, finding an artist that matches the style of your story is definitely one massive challenge. Obviously, there's talent out there up the wazoo. It also depends on. So, for instance, I'm working with a brilliant artist right now, and I actually rewrote certain parts of my story because I knew that the art style would allow for slightly different elements. I had my story set in stone, but then as I started writing it and I started seeing things in their art style, I was just like, maybe we can go a little bit zanier here. Maybe we can really stretch out the possibilities of what reality looks like in this particular segment. And that changes the tone of your story. Now, the question is, like, do I bring out additional tones? Is that going to muddle the overall sensation that I'm bringing for? Like, what kind of flavors am I looking for in this particular issue or in this particular arc? And finding that medium is magic. It's rare, but it's magic. I would say, though, the most important thing if a writer's looking for a good artist is, can that artist express what's in your head actively? So if you say, oh, this is what I'm looking for, and boom, 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 David, yes, I have proof. Jessica, hello. I don't know, we've never met, but hello. But if they can,
I think it was pertaining to this.
Changing letter as an artist.
And she says she has proof of that.
For me, once you find someone who can speak your language, no matter the art style that they have, if they can bring the stuff out of your head onto the page, like, you're gonna find yourself saying, it's like breathing air for the first time. Like, yes, this is what I was looking for.
Wow.
And then you realize that it's just like, oh, go for it. This is the scene, but I want to see what you do with it. And then that's the relationship between the writer and the artist. And that's not found anywhere else. Like, you're not going to find that writing prose or anything else. And it's hard. That's the toughest relationship to build.
Yeah.
And then finding an artist that, that is consistent and, can do stuff on time. And
yeah, and I feel like when you do find that artist, you're, keep them, because you're gonna have to put them back.
Locked in my basement.
Yeah, definitely. That's probably where Francesca is right now, because David locked her up somewhere because he can't let her go because she does such an amazing job on the books.
Lets her go, I will find him. And I will yell at him like a parent. What were you doing?
No, it was just a joke. No. David's not like that. And they're both amazing people.
Of course not.
Well, I think we're almost out of time there, Jen. Do you want to close this up?
Are we really? Man, that flew that time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are we totally wrapping it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right, perfect. This is my statement to you: go and support your LCS, because that's the kind of like the end game for all the creation that's happening out there, all the good writing and lettering and art. It all culminates at the local comic shop. So go and pick their brains for what's good out there, because they also read all that stuff. It's like having somebody that is your own personal shopper every time you walk in. So thanks for joining us today on Mustache You Question.
It was a great show. Oh, Joey, you froze. It's all right. It's going to be okay. I told you, he's been kidnapped.
That's what happened.
That's what happened. Gosh darn it.
I like the smirk.
Like, Do we wait for him? I think he's the only one with the power to end this.
He's the only one that can end the stream. He's probably going,
oh god. Well, okay. I think he's just gone now. Do we do a must ask you a question?
Oh, I forgot to. Well, we asked so many other questions, so
yeah, I feel like this was a good one. This was fun.
A lot of fun. It's funny